Hi, my name is Shadi Atia. I am a professor of sustainable architecture at the Faculty of Applied Sciences, and I'm the head of the Sustainable Building Design Lab. And I would like to present to you today citation and bibliographical management. This is a very important topic. Any researcher should go through that, and they should know how to cite properly, how to select properly a reference, and how to manage their biography. Well, why do we cite? Number one, for transmitting ideas. We have to demonstrate your work has a factual basis. It's based on others' findings and discoveries. Also, you must take into account that you are looking to assist readers in locating the references. So it's very important to allow a reader to trace a document that you are citing and go check the original document for their own personal use. And if you don't quote, it's plagiarism. And plagiarism is already forbidden, not allowed, and there is another module about plagiarism. So this is a third important aspect. And the fourth aspect is citing someone is very important. It's an asset. You're recognizing someone. You're giving him or her a gift by saying, I read your work. And therefore you must respect their rights and their copyrights and their intellectual property by citing their work. So therefore we cite, and these are the main reasons. Looking at the tips for researching and citing, take clear, accurate notes about where you find specific data when you are starting your research, and make sure that you write down the complete citation information for each item you are using. This is a very important step in any researcher's daily work. Use quotation marks when directly stating another person's words. So if you are explicitly taking a piece of text of somebody's work, you must put it in the quotations, and these quotations should not exceed 3% of your total document. So also you're not allowed to quote as much as you like. You just quote when there is an urgency, and make sure that you always credit the original author for their information and ideas. This is very important. So, first step to do that, guaranteeing quality biography. How can I guarantee that the literature or the biography or the references that I am reading are high quality references? You must be able to know that there is different types of manuscripts. We have dissertations and theses. They are on the top of the quality of sources, not always the best, but they are on the top. Then we look at books, peer-reviewed journal papers, peer-reviewed conference papers. Then we look at non-peer-reviewed journal and conference papers. And by peer-reviewed, I mean that peers means professional scientists who are in the same field have revised this work and gave a review for improving the quality of the work. In fact, when you go through any publication, a reference, a journal paper, a conference paper, it should be reviewed by external members to make sure that the content is proper, the structure is proper, and that they make sure that the form and the content of this work is accredited. So to make sure that this publication or this work is of high quality, it's peer reviewed. It has been reviewed by external expert, and therefore it's very important when you look at a reference. If you have a conference paper, it's peer reviewed, and another conference paper not peer reviewed. We take into account the peer reviewed conference paper. The non-peer reviewed is not the best to cite. You can also have different other types of sources like technical reports, newspaper articles, professional magazines, recordings, online articles. So at the end, when you look at different sources, we have a lot of different sources, but one of the things you have to be able to do to classify them and to look at their order. This is very important. Another important issue here is English. You should know that today science language is English. This is not offensive to any local language. No, in parallel, the human brain is intelligent enough to be able to speak multiple languages, 2 languages. So today the languages of science is English. So you must keep in account, this was a conference in Solvay, 1927 in Belgium, and all these scientists coming from different countries, the only way to communicate between them was English. So definitely your references and citation should have this component. So one of the criteria that we judge a good biography of a research for a thesis or for a paper or for a dissertation or any report, I look always, like most researchers do, are these biographies coming from one language domain or they are covering different language domain. If I'm doing a research about Djibouti, they speak their Arabic and French, most probably I must include in my biography texts that are in Arabic and in French and also in English to make sure that I covered the different domains. If I'm doing a research about Germany, it's acceptable to have manuscripts in German, but I should have also something in English. The same if I'm doing a research in Liège University, it's not enough to have only references that are in French. If I don't find references coming from different language domain, it means that the study is limited, is only focused on a specific group. And this is not good for knowledge, because knowledge is looking for the maximum resources to increase the quality and credibility of your work. Another issue is important. We look at biography. Are the biography coming from one specific regions or they are covering different regions? The more the references are coming from Europe or North America or Asia or so on, the more I'm sure that these references are covering different contents. Because sometimes some communities are very conservative, very closed. If I only use their own citations, I'm not be able to generalize and have a clear overview what's happening. So it's very important to ask myself, am I only looking at reference from the Anglo-Saxon word, or I'm looking only for references from the Francophone word, or I'm looking only for references from the Hispanic, or I'm trying to have a diversity. I'm looking at English speaking with French speaking. I'm looking for references from North America with Europe. I'm looking to reference from Belgium plus references from Asia. This is very important to open up your biography. Another important thing to look at is, are your references coming from a scientific domain? What I mean by a scientific domain, the good references, they come from a journal, they come from a conference, a dissertation, a thesis, a professional magazine, a standard, a technical fact sheet, documentaries, for example. However, a bad reference and a weak biography comes from sources like Wikipedia, lectures, non-peered review articles, non-recorded conversations, documents that were not reviewed, they did not go through the scientific process of quality. So this is very important to first guarantee the quality of my references. One of the questions I have to ask myself when I'm picking up a reference is the source appropriate for research? I should make sure, is it an opinion piece or a research piece? If I'm looking in the field of architectural engineering, I should look more for research papers that are not based on opinion, because I'm not here talking about a perception or a subjective interpretation of a topic. I'm looking here mainly to factual information. I need to know today, should I follow renovating nuclear stations in Belgium or should I turn them off? This has nothing to do with opinion. It has to do with doing experimentation, measuring the performance of these stations, checking their ability, analyzing the risk for the society, security, and based on factual investigation, I should take the decision whether I can continue using those plants or I should turn them off. So opinions are not used preferably. You can use them from time to time, but they are not considered as research sources. Another question important you should look at, what do the reviewers say about the source itself? I must make sure that this is a good resource. Some research institutes, they don't have a good reputation, or some researchers, they are biased. So I must make sure that there is a meaningful and accredited resource that I'm taking from the information. So you can ask your instructor, or you can look at the ULJ library. For example, if I'm in medical sciences and I would like to know what is the best treatment for a certain disease, I will not go and look for internet and search on websites written by individuals. Most probably, I would like to go to a source. In medical sciences, there's different databases. There is a database of the French government, there is a database of the Chinese government, there's a database of the American government, and automatically, by default, every database has its own reputation. If I want to talk about genetically modified food, I will not go and consult the American FDA organization because there they have different standards compared to the European. I will go more for the European standards because I will know that the standards and the quality is high, and so on and so forth. So it's very important to make sure what is the source of the reference and are those sources accredited or not. I'm going to find a conference paper, and this conference paper, it's on internet and there is information in it. I must ask myself, who are the conference organizers? Is this group a group of researchers or they are a group of professionals? Do they have a track record of scientific research? Are they accredited or not by the scientific community? Are they considered as serious researchers or not? So it's not easy to identify that, but many students have this pitfall in figuring out any publication there, taking it, using it as a reference without checking the source. Another important issue here is that you must make sure that the reference is up to date. It's unforgivable to cite a reference that was written in the 80s and there is something else that is in 2016 or 2015 available, more up to date. So make sure that your reference is up to date. When we look at the references in any work, and we found out that most references are related to technologies in the 90s. We are now in the 2000, we are in 2000, even past the 2010. This means that I must make sure that the references are up to date. And finally, you should make sure that the publisher is not affecting the information, which means there is no advertisement. If I go and talk about the insulation material for a building, and my site or my reference document here is a company that produce insulation materials, do you think there is no advertisement and marketing component in their document? For sure. So definitely I should also look to this, very important. Is there marketing in this production of this source and references, or there is no marketing? And these are all parameters that can help you to define a better selection of references and make sure always that you refer to the good, strong references citation. The next step now I would like to talk about is how to cite. Once I got the good references, I would like to cite them. But before citing, you should take into account there is something called citation styles. Styles that are different. Every scientific group and community has its own scientific styles. One of the most famous is the American Psychological Association, the APA reference style. We have also the Chicago, the MLA, the Harvard. These are different styles in citing the same reference. So you can have the author, you have the year of the publication, the title of the publication, the city, the pages, and every style of those is citing the same reference differently. In my lab, I use mainly the APA, but it's up to choices. You can find other labs using different types of citation. But before citing, you must define the APA. Talking about the APA citation reference, the APA origin is the American Psychological Association, and it's commonly used for writing style guide. In general, you should write the information and cite any reference in the following order. You should include the author's last name and then the initials. And by initials, I mean the first letter of their name, or their first name actually. So you have the last name and then the initials, and then you can have after the title of the topic, then you have a pagination, which means the page number that you are looking at, and you can have the indentation, so this is the first line entry of flush, and you could have underlining in italic the title. This is an example for that. The author name here, the family last name is called Ku, and the first name, I don't know his first name, but I know that the initial is G. Between bracket I have the year, then I have a title, and once here the organizational behavior and human decision process. This is the conference or the journal where it was published, and I can understand automatically that 105 means that this is the number of the publication. 105.2, this could be a second edition. 221, 232, these are the pages of this reference. So this is a universal way of communicating references. In this way, we can understand where are the references coming from. Now I'm going to give you some examples. If I have an article with one author, this is how I do it. I will just mention the first name. If I have an article with two authors, I just pick up the first name, comma, initial period, comma, and the second name or the second last name, comma, and initials, and then I follow up. So this is the way to do it when I have two authors, and there is another way to do it if I have more than one authors. I can list them in order before coming to the date of the publication. Another type of citation for a single author, for example, that I can do the last name of the author and then I say and al, and this is simply kind of simplified method. Here you can see the different example. If you want to say that Simon in 1945 said this or presented this, all you need to say that they say Simon and put the citation in brackets and continue mentioning what he said. So the last name of the author is enough and the year of publication in order to cite or quote somebody in a text. Sometimes you have for multiple authors you can quote the different names. So you said Leiter and Maslach said or showed in 1988 and you continue the sentence. And when you have more than two, you can say Kahneman, Knetsch and Thaler found, and you continue. So this is how to quote a citation with several authors. You have also association or cooperations, names of groups that are written each time they appear in a text or a reference. For example, you can say the National Institute of Mental Health. Instead of mentioning every time this long time, you create an abbreviation with the year and directly can use it in your quotation. If there is no authors, you can say climate and weather. So you use the words associated with the title. And when you have an anonymous user, you can just say anonymous 2008. These are all styles to cite different biographies. If you have specific parts of a work, you can say Steger and Das in 1981 in page 96. So here you are particularly pointing to a specific part. If you have a web article or an online article, you should also look at the author, because any internet article must have an author. You should mention. And if you have a journal article subscription, you can even mention where from was it retrieved. So you should provide the link for your references. If you have a newspaper article, you mention the authors, the date is, here you are talking about the date, and you say the title of the journal and the name of the journal and the page and the edition. Well, when you have books with two authors, you can do it like here, this example, Frank and Bernanke, 2007. This is the name of the book, the edition, where was it published, Boston, the publisher name. When you have an edited book, which means that an author wrote a chapter in a book and you would like to cite this author, you should actually not cite the author, you should cite the editor who combined the book. And then you can mention the title. And you should also include the same type for dissertations for PhD. You can mention, it will be always in a PhD, one single name or a master's thesis, never double names. You have the year, the title, and you can make it say where is it available with the depository number if it's in a specific depository in a library. If you have an encyclopedia, this is the way to do it. You mention the encyclopedia year, the volume, where is it published or issued, and the publisher. If you have an online encyclopedia, here how it goes. You have the same title and then you can have a link. And if you have a government report you accessed online, you must provide the full link. Any document accessed online, you should mention who is the author or who wrote this report. Even if it's here the Congressional Budget Office, there is no person, but it's an institution. You write the year, the title, and you should mention retrieved and you mention the link to it. This is how to do it. Well, if you have an audio recording, it's also very simple. You put the speaker, the year, the topic of the recording, the cassette. You mention that it's a cassette recording or a video recording or an audio recording. If you have a television broadcast, you mention the producers, mainly the year and the type or the title of the presentation. You mention that it's a television broadcast and you say where it was broadcast and which news information. There is a lot of this information and how to cite on this Cornell Library link. You can check it on internet, and by that you can follow these different cases, and if you have any specific particular reference, you can use this link to identify the way of creating the citation. Now I would like to move to the final part or the pre-final part of my presentation. Today, with the complexity of all these kind of presentation types of citing, there is totally intelligent techniques to cite very easily. Something called the management systems for biography. So simply you have your own paper. There is several articles, books, conference papers you would like to cite. You are embedding them in your text. And at the end, you would like to come up with a reference list or a biographical list at the end. There is today difficulty to do it because you have to type a lot. You lose references, you make mistakes, you forget. So the easiest way to do it, you use software that can manage your citation. There is many softwares that based on subscription. There is two famous softwares, Mendeley and Zotero. In my lab, we are using mainly Zotero. So I advise you to download it. It's for free. And Zotero simply, it's a tool that will help you to create and manage the list of references in a very easy way. Most tools are designed to organize citation in the same specific format. So you can select APA, you can select MLA, you can select Chicago, and you can change anytime. So therefore, it's very a good way to prepare your manuscript. And there are many research tools provide ways to download references. So I can even on internet today download the reference and link it to my software or management software, in this case Zotero. So simply a software like Zotero is going to collect these references. So I'm browsing on internet, I have already my software Zotero installed. I tell Zotero, take these references in the biography, and I must have my Word file open. I'm writing and I'm saying, I'm citing Mr. X. Mr. X, the reference comes from the internet. It goes automatically in my database, my article. The citation goes directly in my text embedded, and automatically Zotero creates a list of biography. This sense, it's very efficient, and I can keep track of all references I'm using, and I'm sure that these references are well described and written, and I don't need to do this long effort to check that. I would like to say some important things. Zotero is for free. It is a standalone version for Chrome, so you can only use it with Chrome. You should mainly use it with Firefox. There is a standalone version with Chrome, but I advise you to install it with Firefox, and always follow the website, the mozilla.com, to install the Firefox and then install your Zotero. So actually you will find all these instructions on the Zotero website. Just keep this in record, zotero.org, and simply Zotero can recognize the biographical information, all types of references. It can store even the PDFs. If you want to store PDFs related or images or links in the software itself, it can create a biography in a Word or OpenOffice software, and you can publish the shared libraries, and you can even share your libraries with others. So this is very advantageous. The first step to do is to install Firefox, and from Firefox start to install the software. Just to keep in mind, this is the interface of the software. You can follow this instruction, and you have to install a standalone version and a Firefox version. All these instructions could be found on the tutorial. So I will leave you with those two tutorials, one in French, one in English. Just use these terminologies to search on Google on YouTube, and you can follow the French tutorial to install and use Zotero. And this is another tutorial to use the English version of it. And Zotero is in several languages, so you can adapt the settings to you. That's it. Thank you for your attention. Don't forget to cite, don't forget to create a biography, and I will follow with other academic modules. Thank you.